This is our live stream with the truckers with Chris Barber and Tamara Lich, who's been the one really running the GoFundMe campaign. And I want to, I think, start with you, Tamara, because the GoFundMe thing was pretty big. So let's see if we can make our way through that and explain for people what happened. So at some point last week, the GoFundMe was pulled down or something, or what happened?
Yes, we actually had a really great phone call with them. I think that was Thursday or Friday. The legal team and I sat down and we had a really great phone call. We answered all their questions and we were feeling pretty confident that they were going to move forward.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, we found out that they had suspended it. They weren't accepting any more donations, and we were pretty surprised by that.
So I just want to be clear, Tamara. So you had a good conversation with the GoFundMe people, and
Yes.
and there was no hint that it was going to go south. And then the next day, was it abrupt when they did what they did?
I feel it was abrupt. Yeah, we were not expecting that. The legal department and the accountant that were with me, like I said, we were all very confident. We answered all their questions and we were very confident it was going to move forward. And then the next day they had suspended it and we're not accepting any more donations.
And what was the explanation given for that? I think that's what everybody wants to know from the horse's mouth, because multiple things have been said.
Again, I think their explanation was that we violated their terms of service or something. They wanted to speak to the police department here first, and they have since come out. I can't remember if it was the mayor or if it was
the mayor
the chief.
that actually thanked the GoFundMe for we're working together with them to have it taken.
Yeah.
Come on, really?
They both did. I think both the police chief and this Ottawa mayor said that they were thanking GoFundMe for pulling it down.
Yeah, and I don't understand why. I mean, other than that they're trying to paint us as violent and aggressive and threatening, which is be farther from the truth.
Yeah. And so what did that mean for you? What does it mean practically for you?
We just set up a different platform on with a much more friendly group called Give, Send, Go.
Yeah.
Which gives us quicker access to that money to get out to these guys. And they've been really wonderful to deal with. So really at the end of the day, we're just going to keep on trucking, pun intended.
I think there's almost $5 million in there already for
Yeah.
the last.
In the new one. Yes. But for people who gave, what is going to happen? I think GoFundMe said they were going to just automatically refund it or something?
They ended up doing because they got pressure. So what they were requesting was if you wanted a refund, you would have to request it. Yep. Whatever wasn't requested to be refunded, they were going to give to a charity of their choice. Yep. Excuse me, which is, these people donated their hard-earned money for this cause. It's not really up to GoFundMe to determine where they should be sending it to. So they did get some pressure, and then they decided to refund everyone.
Well, there was pressure from the states, wasn't there? I think Ron DeSantis was suggesting that he might go after some kind of a fraud charge. I think the Attorney General in Texas also was doing that. And then over the weekend, I think Ted Cruz also. Yeah, it's amazing because I talked to somebody in the States over the weekend and they said, the truckers are getting really good media attention in the States and also in the UK. You are. The bad attention seems to be primarily here and coming from politicians and media here. It's quite interesting.
And alarming.
Yeah. And alarming. Yeah. Sorry, Chris?
So the true colors are showing every day here.
Yeah. So that is now settled, right? The money will be refunded. You have a new funding platform, which is called, say it again.
Give, Send, Go.
Give, Send, Go. And you're not worried about that at all?
No. We were in direct contact with the owner of Give, Send, Go.
Yeah.
They're going to be looked after this time.
Okay. The interesting thing about the GoFundMe problem for me, as an observer, is that people who sent you money were kind of voting. They were kind of saying what these people are doing has, has significance for me. And by not delivering that money to you to do with it what was supposed to be done, it's almost like you're canceling those people, right? Their thinking doesn't matter, right?
And I've said that right from when this started taking off, Trish, is that it's really less about the money at this point, but it's more about the statement behind the money.
Yeah. So I want to ask you guys some controversial questions now, because over the weekend things have started bubbling up. Obviously, the media is pouring through your backgrounds, trying to find things. And I'll start with you, Chris. That there's a video of you. I think it's in your shed or your garage with
Shop.
it's in your shop. Okay, with a Confederate flag on the wall that's been bounced around to discredit you. Please tell me why it's there and what your response was to that video going around to discredit you over the weekend.
Well, as everybody knows, I'm a long haul truck driver, so those flags were bought down in, I believe, South Carolina, somewhere a long haul that I was on. They were souvenirs.
Souvenirs, yeah.
Yeah, just souvenirs, just something to hang on the wall. There's a lot of things hanging on my wall in my shop. If you could come at a Nazi flag, then you could come at me with something that you could really hang me for, but that's not the case. I'm not going to get into my personal story here. This is about the Canadian people and mandates. When the media is trying to tear me apart, we've got a prime minister sitting on Parliament Hill or wherever the hell he is right now that's openly admitted had blackface on not once, not twice, but 3 times now. Yeah, he doesn't even know how many times. And you're worried about a flag that's hanging on my wall in my shop? Come on, go find something else to be concerned about.
Yeah, well, I think people would probably like to hear you denounce what that flag represents to people too, right, Chris?
Confederacy, it's history. It's a Confederacy. There's a huge history. If anybody knows me, they know that I'm a history buff, whether it comes to World War I, World War II. Yeah, I don't condone any racism. I've been, standing there with my arms around 2 clan mothers for basically the last week down here. So no, it's nothing like that. It's a flag that hangs on a wall. I've never been part of this cancel culture, and I won't be canceled. I mean, the last thing you want to do is send me home with a wood stove in the hills somewhere where I can live peacefully for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and also same with you too, Tamara. That apparently I haven't seen it. A photograph of you posing beside the Robert E. Lee, or not. I don't even know what it's called. The car from Dukes of Hazzard, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, no, that wasn't me. That was my husband.
Oh, your husband. Okay.
And that was actually before we were even together. So you have to understand, our generation grew up watching the Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah.
And at that time, it was like the #1 show ever. Everyone wanted to be Bo and Luke Duke. And so, yeah, they must have been on a tour, I believe, at one point. And so he went down and had his picture taken with that car. Now, my husband is not political. He is not interested in politics. He's not aware of, or wasn't aware of the stigma attached to those symbols, right? He's not interested. He doesn't care. He doesn't follow this stuff. So, that's all I can really say about that.
Yeah, it must be interesting that the engagement for you is when, is about this, is about combing through your past, looking for dirt, and not on the issues. I mean, no one likes those symbols. That's fine. We get it. But the issues that you're talking about around mandates and the democratic imposition of things the way they should have happened and didn't happen, that gets overshadowed because nobody seems to want to engage with you on that, do they?
No. And it's unfortunate that they'd rather focus on things like that than the reason why we're here.
Yeah. Is that frustrating for you?
It is frustrating.
Only if you let it.
Yeah.
The only way you're going to be frustrated is if you let yourself be frustrated. So, people, let's focus on the issues at hand. The issues at hand are mandates. Canadians sent us here or supported in us going here for these reasons, not because of a flag hanging on some wall. Or I grew up watching the Dukes of Hazzard. The General Lee was the iconic car from the 80s, for crying out loud. Daisy Duke didn't wear much for clothes back in the day, but we loved her anyway, right?
Yeah.
People need to get over this cancel culture crap and move past it. We're bigger than this, like quit watching the deterrence of the media and the government's putting out right now.
Well, this is
but lots of things that happen, like what was okay, say 2 years ago, is not okay now. I mean, how do you keep up with that? You know?
And we should be talking about the issues at hand. So let's just put that aside now and just move on. I had to address it with you.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, no, and you guys have been open about it, and that's great. So let's just move on now to the issue at hand. And I think people were pretty unnerved to see this declaration, emergency declaration last night. Tell me what happened, Chris, out there. What was happening as a result of that declaration?
Well, we started getting reports, and I don't know exactly the time of it. I've got reports on my phone yesterday afternoon from all over the country, just random text messages saying, state of emergency has been declared. What are you guys going to do? Is everything okay? And then we started getting reports of police arresting guys for carrying jerry cans. And it was just kind of building up one thing after another. Then reports started coming in one of our staging areas. I think it was a staging area set up by the city, was it
Yeah, I
not?
think so.
We call it 302 Coventry.
Yeah.
It was under siege, so we jumped in our vehicles and headed that direction to see what we could do. We couldn't get anywhere close.
What does
There was-
under siege mean, Chris? Describe for me what that means, please.
Under siege was 2 tour buses of police showed up. There was tactical people deployed. There was emergency response. There was snipers on the roof, Trish. They had people on the roof of the Ball Diamonds in the hotel. If they were carrying a rifle, I'm not sure, but somebody said they were snipers. I seen their bodies up there looking down on people. These are families in these cabins of these trucks. There's children in there. There's toddlers. There's dogs. What the hell are they doing with guns drawn on anybody in this sort of a thing? This is the most peace I've ever seen in my life. The most amount of hugs that I've ever received or given in my life. And hugs, handshakes, smiles, tears. We've seen everything here. There's been no violence at all.
It's shocking to see them behaving that way. And one wonders, I'm just kind of blue skying here, but I wonder if they feel that if they do things like that with the trappings of threat, that they will make people believe that there is a threat. That's what I'm thinking about yesterday, because I don't just take you guys' word for it on things. Obviously, I'm a journalist. You know, I've talked to quite a few people who've been down there, and they all say there's no violence going on. So if there's no violence going on, and these are credible, objective, neutral people, then why are the police sending snipers out? I mean, that's really shocking.
That had me so, I haven't been upset since I've been here. I've been happy, but that had me quite livid yesterday seeing that. You know?
Why?
The show of force like that for a bunch of truck drivers promoting peace. That's all we've done is promote peace, and they show up with guns to pretty much to a birthday party. The celebration we've had down here since we got here has been absolutely amazing. The people, the song, you know, there's people dancing in the streets. There's people, they fed each other. They feed.
Little kids handing us thank you cards that they made.
We've got enough. I got enough stuff to go home and build a mantle in my house of the stuff I've received. The awesome stuff.
Yeah, it's remarkable that they're reacting this way. Are you hopeful that the Prime Minister or somebody from the PMO or the cabinet may stop the madness and meet with you?
We're hoping maybe the lines of communications will be open today. We're not sure. It's a new day, I guess.
Are there back channels between your people and his people, or
not between his people? Nothing that we've seen so far. A little bit through the other parties, but nothing through the Liberal Party yet at all. We're just terrorists. They kind of hurl insults and names, and then they run back inside. Yeah.
The other thing that happened yesterday was this idea about gas cans. What did you say they're called? Jerry cans or something?
Yeah. That's how we've been getting the fuel to the trucks that need them the most. That they can't get. We can't get to with a diesel pump truck. So
I guess if I'm reading it correctly, the jerry can is filled with diesel, and then someone hand carries it to a vehicle, and then gases up or diesels up the vehicle. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're like little red or yellow plastic jugs, yay high. They hold about 5 gallons of fuel. Yellow symbolizing diesel, red symbolizing gas.
And what will happen if you can't get those through?
Trucks run out of fuel. There's like I said, there's children in some of these trucks, animals. And
so the trucks won't be warm. Is that what you're saying? That they won't? Yeah. And so I'm wondering also, is there are you getting food in and that sort of thing?
So much food. There's so much food that we're donating it back to shelters and stuff.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, like people, there's food everywhere. There's barbecue set up. People are eating very well down here, and that is all thanks to the generosity of Canadians and Ottawa citizens.
You said that people were arrested, Chris. What did that look like? Were people like handcuffed and taken away?
I haven't physically seen it. My reports have come in from many people that if you were in possession of a jerry can last night, you were arrested because you were aiding, abetting mischief. I believe they've designated us all as charged with mischief, apparently for protesting.
Yeah.
Remember that, protesting.
Well, what do you say to the people of Ottawa who have been vocal about not wanting you there? I mean, aside from the politicians, obviously, who have
I
an
feel
axe to
bad
grind.
for the horns.
Yeah.
You know, I've done everything in my power to work with law enforcement, to go out physically every day, talk with the trucks and just say, come on guys, there's curfews in place. Let's be respectful. There's people that live in these buildings. It's like herding cats some days.
Yeah. People
Yeah.
are a little over enthusiastic, I think.
They
Well,
are.
yeah.
And,
Go ahead.
and you know I feel horrible for them. I can't imagine, but at the same time, you have to remember that it is an inconvenience, but we have people out there that have lost their businesses. We have people out there that have lost their jobs all across Canada. We have people out there who've committed suicide over these lockdowns and restrictions. So as terrible as it is to listen to the horns honking, I would just encourage them to call their local politicians and ask to have these mandates lifted.
Yeah.
And as soon as that's done, we're out of here.
Well, all of this, police presence and smear campaigns and this kind of forensic, investigation into everybody would be unnecessary if you were just granted the rights of citizens, which is, to protest and to be heard.
Yes.
Right?
We haven't been heard. We've been here for over a week and we haven't been heard at all. We've been heard by the people of Ottawa, I guess, in a different respect, but.
Yeah. So what does this week hold for you? What's next?
Well, what we're trying to do right now is we're reaching out to all of the federal parties so that we can arrange sit down so that we can start these talks and see how we can move forward, have the mandates and the restrictions lifted, restore Canadians' rights and freedoms, and go home.
And are you getting any positive? Is anybody from the opposition parties listening to you or being positive about possibly meeting with you, or no?
Yes. Yeah, there's a few. Yeah. So we're going to be organizing that this week.
Yeah. What is your feeling about violence? I know they're saying that you're violent, but what about violence being perpetrated against you guys? I know, Tamara, that you said that you had to move hotels because of death threats. That's not good, is it?
No, it's not good. And honestly, I'm not worried for my safety. I can walk downtown freely amongst all these people and I don't feel unsafe. It's like a big love fest, to tell you the truth. Everyone's stopping, hugging me, crying, smiling. They're really coming together. I moved because the hotel, the staff there was a little freaked out, I think, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them. So, I want them to feel at ease also. We know that there's been people that have been sent in to try and instigate, and our people are all aware of it and they know exactly what to do. Just do not engage, take a step back and get yourself out of the situation. I've said right from the start, we are not here to be violent, to be aggressive, or to be threatening. This is a peaceful protest, and all of our people are on board with that. Everybody is. We know that if that stuff starts happening, we're finished. So
you're toast. Yeah.
Eye on the prize.
Why do you think the Prime Minister has taken the stance he's taken, which is essentially to assassinate your character instead of meeting with you? Why has he done that?
Because he's scared of us, maybe. I loved in his speech the other day, he said he takes part in rallies that are his choice, what he agrees in. He singles himself out as this, he's a tyrant. You look at his actions right now. What kind of a sitting prime minister, what kind of a leader is so divisive that You know, he's supposed to be leading by example. We're the truck drivers. We're the lower in the totem pole. Apparently, he's the guy that's supposed to be up here bringing a country together.
And it
So
isn't just us, it's Canadians,
Canadian.
Yeah.
all Canadians. So by not listening to us, he's refusing to listen to the voice of what Canadians want.
I was at the rally on Tuesday down at the intersection of Avenue Road and Bloor, which is like 5 blocks where I live. And the atmosphere was exactly as you put it, and exactly as I've heard from my eyes and ears on the ground in Ottawa. It was what I said, I actually tweeted about this. It was like going to the Raptors game during the championship season, right? It was super multicultural. People were happy. There was a real fraternity, a real kind of brotherhood and sisterhood there. I mean, it was kind of like Woodstock. I mean, everybody had a flag, and they had a Canadian flag in a good way. Nobody was burning them. And people from, I mean, this was really an experience for me in my life, that people from all walks of life, all social strata, you know, you had truck drivers hugging women carrying Louis Vuitton bags and stuff. It was amazing. It was an amazing moment. And, you know, sure, there's going to be weirdos attached to everything once in a while. I mean, it just happens when people in large groups get together. It's normal that there are strange things, but I didn't see any of it. Everybody seemed very happy, and I moved through the crowd a number of times. I was there for about 3 hours. It was really, really something. And it seems like what you guys are describing in Ottawa is the same. It's the same, right? Remarkable.
It's like Canada Day on steroids.
Well, even better, it's like Kawhi Leonard's, was it 3 bounces or 4 bounces in the game against Philadelphia, whatever. We were there. I was there with my kids, right? It was like the greatest day of our lives. I've got 2 basketball playing boys, so it was pretty remarkable. But in the arena that night, it is like a Raptors game, because the Raptors crowd is very multicultural. And especially in Jurassic Park there outside, right? And that is exactly what it felt like at Avenue Road and Bloor on Saturday afternoon. I came home walking on air at the joie de vivre amongst those people that I have not seen really for 2 years. You know, the politicians and public health, I hate to say this, but they've pitted neighbor against neighbor. You know, tell on your neighbor if they have to, like all of those awful things. And it feels like somehow what you guys are doing is bringing people back together again, which is so weird, right? Did you guys actually think that this would happen this way, or?
No, not like it is. You know, we sit in our boardrooms and our strategy meetings and all that sort of stuff half the day. And those just kind of, they're there. The energy level isn't there. When we need a break from those and we need an uplifting thing, the first thing I do is walk outside. You walk up to Parliament Hill and you just listen to people and feel people out there. And of course, you can stand there for 2 minutes and somebody recognizes you. And the next thing you know, you're hugging and handshakes. And, you know, we're back to that now. People just want so desperately to grasp onto something. And I've got a letter, an anonymous letter from a lady. It isn't signed with a phone number or a name or anything like that. And it's a long letter. Someday I will get you a copy of it. I've been reading it as I've been, you know, trying to relax for the evening. It was basically a lady telling me that she's lost all control in this country because of the government and has taken everything from her. And the only thing she has left is the way she takes her last breath. Yeah. And that's what she was planning out. And she writes us all out in this beautiful letter saying how that we have given her hope and she does not want to do that anymore. She said, just hold true with what you guys are doing. You've given me a new outlook on life. This is, you know, brought renewed life to me again. And yeah, to say that it's not emotional to read that, it's something I'm going to hold with me.
And that's really the message that we're getting when we're down there with the people is thank you for giving us hope and bringing us all together for the first time in a long time. And I've said it before, I mean, our leaders have just been pushing all this divisive rhetoric, and they're pitting vaccinated against unvaccinated, races against races, religions against religions, cultures against cultures, and no more. Right? If you could see the diversity of the people that are here, it's so heartwarming and inspiring.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that came through to me in the last couple of days is the idea that, the fear campaign was used to get compliance from people around public health issues. And they've admitted that now. There's a book about it by Laura Dodsworth, who was on our show, called State of Fear, where she talks about the behavioral science units purposely ginning up fear in the population to get them to comply. And I feel in a way that they're doing that now again with you, that playbook is still working for them. They're trying to make people afraid of you. I think that's sort of what it feels like to me. I mean, maybe they kind of legitimately feel they have to do this. I don't know. But I am not seeing, the people who have been my eyes and ears there are not seeing what they are describing. So it does feel like you are maybe being victimized by a propaganda campaign too.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Media people aren't listening to it though. If you want the real truth, you go to our social media, we go to the smaller podcasts, YouTube videos, stay away from the big mainstream media because they're portraying this as something not. That's why we're trying to do as much as we can with the smaller ones. We're trying to get our social media out there. We can speak directly to Canadian people. I can't tell you, I've got over 100,000 people on my TikTok right now watching the video, and I'm trying to try and tone my language down a little bit.
Yeah.
Before all this, it was free for all Chris, spewing whatever I wanted to spew for language. Now I'm kind of muffled myself and found my words a little bit better.
Would you work with the mainstream media if they approached you again, or what is your feeling about that? Because I know you've said no to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The behavior that I've seen from them, I would say not right now.
Yeah.
They have been bullying us. They have been, for an example, at the press conference that we had the other day, we had some of the road captains with us. One lady driver was actually shoved out of the way by them. I think if they're going to stop their bullying and start showing a little bit of respect, then perhaps we'll consider it.
Very aggressive. Like the people that we've been with in the media so far have been absolutely amazing. And then you got CBC, all these guys pulling in, they're just brushing your shoulders and yelling questions, being very,
and just being horribly rude.
That's not our nature. I choose not to take part in that. I don't turn that stuff on anymore.
How do we bring the country together now, do you think? Because, I've heard from two sources within the CBC that there is a lot of derision around people who challenge the COVID narrative. And I don't just mean like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about, but, they're hillbillies and they're this and that. And so the well now has been so contaminated by the rhetoric that I feel like it's almost impossible for people to come together now, right? There's these two solitudes, right?
We've got a bunch of nice, high-class doctors on our side here.
You do, yeah.
Countless meetings with them. They would like to debate the science with the people from the government. Right now, Dr. Hodgson's yesterday made the comment that the government now is, the main pharmaceutical company now, for the person pushing of. That's not the government's job. That's the doctor's jobs.
Yeah. Well, I wish that the media had spent more time asking hard questions around the science, but they didn't. Maybe they'll learn next time. It would be great if they did. Anyway, I'm going to let you guys go. I know you've got a busy day, so thank you very much for doing this. We have another guest coming up. It's David Freiheit, who has an awesome YouTube channel. From covering what's been going on there. So I want to hear from him. But thank you so much, and stay in touch with us and let us know what's going on.
Thank you. And Trish, thank you for everything that you're doing. You are a voice of reason and a voice of truth in a crazy, crazy world. And I can't say how grateful I am to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tamara. Thanks, Chris. Say hi to Zippy.
I will. For sure. Thanks, Trish. Take care.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye. Bye. Okay, so here comes David. Hi, David. I got to get the pronunciation of your last name. So just please bear with me here.
It's both words, Fry and Height.
Fright.
Freiheit, like the two
words. So it's two syllables, Freiheit?
Yeah. And it means freedom verbatim in German. In German, frei is free and Heit is the state of being. So Freiheit is the state of being free.
Oh, wow. Well, there you go. What a perfect name for what we're doing. It's great, right?
It was a good name as a lawyer, but I never did criminal law. So in commercial litigation, it was more or less applicable.
That's great. Okay, so I just want the people watching to understand why you're here. I was tipped off to you and absolutely blown away when we spoke on the phone. You've been on the ground in Ottawa. You're a neutral observer. You're a lawyer from Montreal and also a videographer or
A vlogger. We call it vlogging.
vlogging.
VLAWG because it's like video blogging, but related to law.
Oh, right. Okay, cool. And so you've got a big YouTube channel with lots of videos about what's been happening in Ottawa, which is great. It's an interesting kind of journalism. I did, when January 6th happened, I was trying so hard to get to the truth. The zone was so muddy with propaganda. And it was some of the video guys there, a guy named Jeremy something, I've forgotten his last name, but we had on the show, and he had the most neutral and cogent observations of anybody. It was great. So I really believe in what you guys do. So let's just talk for a minute about what we talked about on the weekend, and that is the reality versus what the media is reporting is going on in Ottawa. Please talk me through that.
It is surreal. It's almost comical. If it were a movie, you would say, okay, this is caricaturized reality. But I'm sitting here in Montreal. Last weekend I was out of town. I was supposed to go to Ottawa Saturday or Sunday, but I was out of town. I'm reading the news headlines that this is a violent, xenophobic, racist, extremist convoy. Then I'm seeing video footage and tweets from people on the ground who I trust, who I trust because they've been consistent in their social media content. And I said, I got to reconcile this because it doesn't make any sense. I'm seeing the tweets about, urine and feces all over the place, desecrating the monuments, people walking around with swastika flags and Confederate flags. It's like, I've got to go down and see this because some are saying this is characterizing the movement. Others are saying this was one guy who happened to have a cameraman there. So I drive down on the Monday just to live stream, just to walk and see if it's there. We're all going to see it in real time. And if it's not, we're all going to see it in real time. And it's remarkable. It's literally like Truman Show-esque, diverging realities.
Yeah.
And and someone just recently just asked me, it's like, send me some of the fake news that you say exists. I was like, okay, here's an article. Oh, here's a tweet from Justin Trudeau saying that the convoy is displaying anti-Black racism, anti-Semitism, transphobia. Here's an article talking about the Terry Fox monument being defaced, desecrated, which consisted of a flag in his hand and a banner on his chest that said freedom. Here's an article about the war monument being urinated on and desecrated. Go watch my videos and you can come to your own conclusions, but it's night and day of truth versus lie.
So that's what I'm understanding too. You're not the only person who said that to me, but that's the characterization certainly of the people who are running this thing, from Tamara and Chris and the others, that they're pretty well behaved. What I don't understand, and have you thought about how this happened? Why is the media focused on these kind of outlier incidents and then blowing them up into something terrible, and not reporting on what's really happening there?
So there's two angles to that question. The first is how, and then the why.
Yeah.
I mean, the how, the fake news term has become a bit of a trope, a bit of a meme, a bit of a cliche, but it's how fake news does fake news. You ignore the problem entirely. When you can't ignore it, you divert from it. So at first it was, there is no convoy. Then it was, okay, hundreds of trucks are protesting in British Columbia road conditions. Then when people start calling them out and saying, yeah, that's not the convoy everyone's talking about, then CBC, other than stealth editing their original article to change the headline to say, this is not the convoy going to Ottawa, they then have to go from distraction to demonizing. And then they say, it's an extremist movement and they want to overthrow the government. This was on CJAD Montreal. They said the convoy wants to overthrow the government. And so that's how fake news does it. And they are relentless. Why do they do it? Because look, it's not Alex Jones conspiracy here. They're in bed with the government. CBC Radio-Canada relies on the Liberal government for funding. I appreciate it's the Canada Broadcasting Act, which is a federal law. So in theory, whichever government is there is going to fund them. But when one party says we want to defund the CBC and the other one says, we're going to, here's some more food, get fat, legacy media, you know who they're going to support. The CBC, you know, it's state funded. They sued the conservatives. They took an injunction against the conservatives in 2018 to prevent the conservatives from using CBC clips in one of their political promotional ads on Twitter. They never sued the liberals for doing that. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is it's a dying media. Legacy media is dying. They can't succeed on their own merits. And so in addition to being subsidized by the government, they just got $600 million bailout from Trudeau a few years ago. And so you get that money. It's not rocket science. You're not going to bite the hand that pays you, literally. And I'm not mixing metaphors. I'm changing it.
Yeah.
So they get 600 million from the government as a bailout. And then COVID, what better way to launder taxpayer dollars into these failing and flailing media outlets than through COVID ads? Legault in Quebec spending 150 million a year on ads. Trudeau, by the way, I pulled over on the side of the road here, oddly enough, next to a trucker spot. So this is not part of the convoy. It's just random.
Oh, okay.
You got Trudeau, you know, promising $90 million for COVID ads. And so it's an indirect way, a discreet way of taking taxpayer dollars, feeding it to the flailing media and saying, you know what to do. You know what's good for you if you want to keep sucking at the teat of government and keep, you know, grabbing these ad dollars. So run the narrative and you'll keep getting our government ads. And if you don't, and you do what Radio X did out of Quebec, we'll pull it, corporate will pull it, and we'll try to bankrupt you for promoting the wrong message.
It's what's happened around the trucker protest from a media perspective is well, and you know, regarding the power structures too, right? The institutions, the coordinated attack on their GoFundMe page when, you know, we know like GoFundMe was funding the Black Lives Matter CHOP district in Seattle, which was burning buildings down. And they, you know, so all of these things have become completely politicized. They seem to be politicized all around certain ideas. And it's a remarkable thing to see because I think Canadians are saying, you know, where do I fit into this? Who is representing my viewpoints, you know, to the government these days? And it's hard to find.
It's the GoFundMe is the you know, the embodiment of what is wrong, and it is fascism by definition, not in the hyperbolic sense. It's the incestuous relationship between the government, big tech, and the media. And you know, they raise $10 million, second biggest GoFundMe in Canadian history. And GoFundMe, after freezing it the first time under the pretext that they didn't specify their direction in which the funds were going to be used, they froze it at 4.8 million. The Convoy says this is how we're going to use the funds. GoFundMe then unfreezes it, but under political pressure, and I would dare say corrupt political pressure, it's been admitted now by the Ottawa, I don't know if it's police or government.
Both, it was police and mayor, actually.
They pressured GoFundMe to shut it down, and GoFundMe used as a pretext purported violence of the convoy, purported police reports of violence. First of all, I'd like to see those receipts because I question them, to be polite. But they fabricate a pretext to shut it down, and then they literally attempted to steal the money. They said, we're going to shut it down. You're going to have a certain time frame within which to request a refund, and if you don't, we're going to give what's left over to a charity of our choice. Maybe one of the actual violent ones.
Yeah.
They got blown out on social media, so they had to backtrack on that within 24 hours. They said no, automatic refund to everybody. But I think there's still a good lawsuit in there for any active lawyer who's looking for one.
Well, yes, go ahead. Sorry.
It's lies. The pretext for shutting it down is a lie. And if that is their pretext, and this is an open question, if they shut that one down because they thought it was violent, but allowed the other ones up that were actually violent and actually led to destruction and loss of life, I question whether or not GoFundMe could be culpable in having financed those activities. If this is the standard, but that's a separate question.
Well, no, I actually feel sick about it because I think everything that you just said is true. And I thought, wow, is the government able to marshal all the forces in our country against these people in an unfair way based on things that weren't happening? I mean, the GoFundMe thing was really significant to me. It really made me frightened. Made me sick. Yeah.
They're literally doing to the truckers what the GoFundMe did to the people. They want to starve them out. They want to freeze them out. And if it's starvation financially and starvation, you know, literally physically, now that they said you can't bring supplies to the protesters, it is it is the way, it started with Alex Jones, with the deplatforming, the unpersoning of an individual, love him or hate him. It started there. And now it's just become par for the course in terms of starving the ideological adversaries financially and physically at times, to say, no, you can't fundraise for these people because we call it violent, but Chaz, Chop, BLM, where there was actual acts of violence, even if the underlying cause was legitimate, and setting aside the corruption that we now know of BLM in terms of, where those funds were going and how the executives were living large, setting all that aside, it's just, I'm wearing the anti-media shirt today, but I should be wearing the politics ruins everything. Politics ruins everything. And the weaponizing of crowdsourcing, banking, social media against ideological adversaries, it's the new warfare.
It absolutely is the new warfare, and seeing it playing out here. I thought foolishly, David, that Canada might be immune from this massive division between left and right, and now what I call, the kind of global elites who control the mechanisms of power and funding and that sort of thing. But clearly it's here. And the trucker protest is exposing that in a real way. I mean, the whole playbook from America is now here. And
they pulled every card. They pulled a January 6th. And when the January 6th stuff didn't actually happen, because there was actual violence at the January 6th riots, when that didn't happen, they have to create the impression that it did. So put a fence around the war monument as though there had been acts of violence or vandalism when there hadn't, because it creates the impression that either there was or will be imminently. I walked the streets of this protest. They were literally shoveling snow. They were literally picking up garbage. They literally had garbage bags tied to the fence every 20 feet in which people actually put their garbage. And if it was urine on a monument, it might have been a dog, and that still might be, not good. It might be immoral to allow your dog knowingly to urinate on a monument. It is. But to take that one image, to take the one image of the guy with the Confederate flag and a full face ski mask, the one image of a loner off the main path with a swastika flag, to snap those images and then to amplify them, and you have the media doing it, you have the blue check mark politicians doing it, you have members of parliament getting up and unanimously passing a bill condemning hate that doesn't exist at this convoy, and then the people who are just too busy with everyday life get their news from these 30,000 foot overview fake news, fake politician sources, and they are absolutely misled as to what's going on, and they are led to believe that certain responses are legitimate because the pretext on which those responses are being predicated are absolute lies.
And, I was talking to Chris Barber about this just before you came on, and he talked about there were like snipers at this thing last night in the Coventry area around the refueling and the jerry cans and that. And it actually felt to me exactly like what you're saying, that if the police are acting like there's a major threat, then the public and the politicians will be perceiving, and they're able to sell it as a major threat, because then it becomes, we needed snipers on the roof during the thing, right? Clearly they didn't need them, but they put them there, and they put them there for a reason. And I don't think it was because they felt, any threat from these guys. There hasn't really been a threat from these guys.
There was an article, I don't know where it was, so you can take it for what it's worth, that said early data suggests a decrease in crime in the affected areas of the convoy.
Really?
You can take it for what it's worth. Statistics are statistics. They can be easily manipulated, but no, when I was talking to people, yes, it's loud. It's loud during the day, especially on Parliament Hill. The noise fades the further you get. I'm told that the honking stopped between 8 at night and 8 in the morning. I'm sure people are honking. I'm sure people are honking in a city. People honk. Everyone I've spoken to who has these horror stories, they've heard these horror stories, they had no direct knowledge of any of it and no direct experience with it. So they say, people are pissing, and they say, urinating and defecating on people's front porches. I was like, did you see that? I mean, did you see it? No. And then I said, well, if I told you I walked the streets and saw none of it, would you believe me? And the individual says, I believe you, but people probably cleaned it up by then. So, I mean, it's setting up, it's a
tautology, right? It's a tautology. Yeah.
You cannot disprove it. But I have no doubt that there is an inconvenience to the people of Ottawa.
Yeah.
But the other reality is, you live in a capital city. You have to expect certain things. And as far as I know, the truckers who are as diverse, probably more diverse than Parliament itself, because I've walked and talked with them. They seem to be the kindest, most thoughtful people that I've ever met, and have very, very basic demands and very basic expectations of life and government. But they're not running around harassing people the way people are saying. And then when you challenge people on the stories, they cannot substantiate that which they said. There are phones and cameras everywhere. If these incidents of violence, defecation, harassment were happening, there would be video footage of it, period. So,
yeah, it's very interesting. Well, what you describe also is what I was experiencing in trying to discuss some of the more, shall we say, dishonest claims about COVID itself. And one of them was that the hospitals in Toronto were filling up with children. And it's just, the data is just not there to support that. And when you say it to people who've heard it, they refuse to not believe it, right? They've taken it on. They absolutely believe that it's true. And you can say, well, actually, they've admitted that most of those cases were, or half of them were cases of kids who tested positive for something else, right? But they don't want to give it up. So people, this is propaganda. I feel like we're living in Ceausescu land or something. Like it's so hard.
It's like the imprinting effect of a baby duck on its mama. It's like there is an imprinting effect of fear. So when you hear the original story, I'm not oblivious to this myself. You get traumatized, and then you have difficulty letting go of the reflex. So when the New York Times runs an article that says 600,000 kids are in the hospital with COVID, and then they correct it to say like, yeah, sorry, it's actually only, I forget what it was, but they were off by a magnitude of 10 at least.
Huge, yeah.
It leaves an imprint to the point where you have Sotomayor on the Supreme Court saying like there are hundreds of thousands of children in hospital on ICU. I mean, it leaves traumatic misinterpretations, misrepresentations. There was another one. Oh yeah, the CTV ran an article talking about hospitalizations and risks of the shot, and they had to issue a correction. It's just a very small correction at the bottom of the article. It says the original article said that your risks of serious side effect from the shot were 1 in a million. According to public health records, that actual number is 1 in 10,000. So you're only off by a factor of 100, but you add a little correction into an article that no one's going to read the correction after having read the original statistic. So they're going to come away with a lasting false impression that you can't convince out of them, because it's just ingrained in there, and you have to have the open spirit to understand that you might have gotten it wrong, and you have to check your impressions now. It's a tough exercise, even more so to get people to open up to that.
So you told me yesterday that you wanted to do the interview a little bit later because you had a kid you were taking to school or something, but now you're on the road again. Is that back to Ottawa, I guess, right?
Yep.
Is that because of the events of yesterday?
Well, yeah, and I managed to organize one. I do the morning drop off and afternoon pickup. So I dropped one off early and then drove, and then the other one is going to manage their way to school. But no, I had to get back to Ottawa because yesterday it looked like the proverbial poo-poo was hitting the fan, where cops were coming in and confiscating diesel containers. And so I just going to walk in and see what's going on. But I figured I'll do this now, because if it ends sooner than later, we'll just want to get the impression of the people on the street. How's the mood now, and what's actually happening on the ground, because you cannot trust what you get from mainstream. And now that we know how social media platforms work, it's very easy to suppress, censor, eliminate in order to control the narrative and make sure that the voices, big tech platforms want to be heard, get promoted, while those they don't want to get heard get suppressed.
Look at what you're doing. I mean, you're a credentialed lawyer, and here you are doing the work that the country's journalists should be doing.
I don't know what journalism is anymore. I mean, I've been asking myself this question for a long time. Yeah. I don't consider myself a journalist because I don't break stories. I can't verify documents that people send me, nor do I want to. That's not my thing. At first I just wanted to make fishing videos and fun drone videos. Then it got into law, because I have 13 plus years of that expertise, and I enjoy I enjoy understanding the world around me. And it's just a question of witnessing it with my own two eyes and allowing those who can't be there to see what's going on. Yeah, you'll get my commentary. I am much more sympathetic. I am sympathetic to the Convoy cause, because I think the government has gone way overboard for a year and a half without check. So yeah, I'm sympathetic to the Convoy, but I'm not an activist. I still don't consider myself a journalist, but I just want to see what's going on, and I want people to see what's going on, and they'll come to their own conclusions.
Yeah, what a valuable voice you've become. So I guess I'm going to ask you on a personal level, has this really shaken your faith in the institutions in this country, David?
No, because at this point in time, I had no faith in the institutions of this country. So by 2022, I had lost faith. So this is not shocking to me, or let me rephrase. This is shocking to me because it's so egregious and in your face, but not surprising. I mean, I started to lose faith or get red pilled, as they say, when I was breaking down the Michael Flynn judicial saga. Michael Flynn, the Russiagate nonsense. And when
Me too.
When I found out that FBI lawyers were falsifying documents to submit to secret FISA courts to obtain illegal spying warrants that's when I started to say, holy crap, the system is rotten, top to bottom, inside out. So this is just mind blowing for me, the degree to which the Canadian media is doing it. And they're so polite when they're doing it, and they're doing it for their own protection. But I got to say, the white pill moment of sorts is a lot of people around me who have hitherto been tough nuts to crack.
Yeah,
have started
me
cracking.
too.
It's like, I'm saying people who are very much on the left, and I say that without judgment. Finally, when I think, holy crap, it's night and day. They are lying to our faces. And this will open a lot more people's eyes. Mine had already been opened, and my soul had already been calloused by the world in which we live.
Well, I'll tell you, this is my last comment, but I'd like your opinion on this. That the constant critiquing of people with racist accusations is one of the toughest ones for me to really to live with. I know that. This morning in my email inbox, there was a video of Chris Barber has apparently a Confederate flag in his garage or something at home, right? And this is being made into like a major condemnation of his character, his inability to, it's just, why don't they spend that time looking at the data around COVID instead of poring over things to ruin people?
Well, I know nothing of the Chris Barber situation. But the thing about racism is the power lies in the accusation. That's it. And when you can't discredit an idea, just try to discredit the person. When you can't discredit the movement, when you can't discredit the substance of the movement, just try to discredit the movement. And the other thing is, it forces division within the unified side, because they sit there and they look at the convoy and they say racist, xenophobic, anti-Semitic, and then I'm walking through, and then I'm like, okay, well, look at there's a black man here. I'm talking to a black man in the convoy. I interviewed someone from Kuwait. I happen to be Jewish. I'm walking among neo-Nazis, and holy crap, nothing. But it forces everyone to objectify other people instead of allowing them to be a unified force, a genuinely diverse, multicultural, unified force. But identity politics is a poison, and I say it's just a question of confession through projection. The people lobbing the insults. You imagine Justin Trudeau accusing me and others of being sexist, misogynist. This guy who fires his female mojag because she won't abide by his corrupt orders. He accuses others of being racist. The guy who's dressed in costume more times than he can count. The guy who's accusing
blackface. Let's just say it.
The guy who's accusing others of being intolerant. Who walks around shouting intolerant hate speech. Those people are putting us all at risk about the unvaccinated. It's projection through and through. So it's worth nothing anymore. But my goodness, people are starting to wake up and say, Justin, when you're calling everyone racist, sexist, misogynist, Islamophobic, etc., you might be describing yourself more than them.
Well, and we have to stop looking at the world through that lens. It's not getting us anywhere. It's not getting us, dividing us.
No, but they know that. The people who lobbying the accusations, the people relying on identity politics to create perpetual states of victimhood, they know it. And it's how they remain in power, because you create victims, you create oppressors, you create division, and then that's a problem that now the government has to remedy.
Yeah. What was my last question to you, because I know you've got to hit the road, but what was the most amazing thing that you saw at the protest in Ottawa when you were there last time?
Okay, well, I was thinking some memorable moments when I see a 74-year-old lady from Gatineau, Quebec, who I start talking to, and then she says, "Give me a kiss," and she kisses me on both cheeks. And like people are happy to see people again. They're happy they're proud to be Canadian again. And this is a very serious thing, because this is as patriotic as I felt in 2 years. This is as proud of my country as I felt in 2 years. And it's an overall sentiment. I've had some individual experiences, the individual from Kuwait telling me why he left Kuwait and why he's fearful now for what he sees in Canada. The individual from Romania, another individual from Poland, even interviewing the counter protesters on Saturday was a great experience for me, because I think two of them started opening their minds. I think some of them are living in perpetual fear themselves and just can't do it. But I think two of them started to open their minds. One of them said, yeah, I agree with the cause, but not with the methods. I think we just made progress, dude. So some good moments, but it is just, walking the street and seeing it for myself is proving to be an experience of a lifetime.
Yeah, that was my experience on Saturday. I went to the one in Toronto, and it was the same. I said it was like the championship Raptors season, that same kind of feeling, a real brotherhood and sisterhood with the people in Toronto, super multicultural, everybody laughing and singing. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, it was real. It was unbelievable. It was like nothing I've experienced, really.
It's a new Canada Day.
It's a new Canada Day. Yeah, yeah. Okay, David, so let's promote you. So David, say your last name again.
Oh, Freiheit phonetically.
Freiheit.
And social media, YouTube is Viva Frei, VIVAFREI. Twitter is the Viva Frei. Instagram is Viva Frei. And Robert Barnes and we do weekly live streams. He's an amazing US lawyer, representing RFK Jr., handling big cases. We have a platform on Locals called vivabarneslaw.locals.com. It's sort of like Facebook behind a paywall for those who want to support. And then there's, a lot of content for non-supporters. And that's where we can have a lot more honest discussion about stuff that we can't discuss on YouTube.
Well, that's brilliant. Thanks so much for doing this, David. I know you're on your way. So, and we'll stay in touch with you too. We will have you back, especially if things go south there, which God, I pray they don't. But I'll probably be calling you for an update too, because I trust your observations.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, David. Safe
My
driving.
pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Bye.
one.
Bye-bye. So that was David Freiheit, and you got the coordinates of where you can find him online. He's got a wonderful YouTube channel, and I really vouch for his reporting. He's been straight down the line, super honest. He's saying brave things about what he's seeing, so that's admirable. And before him, obviously, it was Chris Barber and Tamara Lich. And this is the end of our live feed about the convoy in Ottawa. But we will be doing more of these as the story unfolds over the next few days, I think. I have a bad feeling, but that's just me. Maybe, they seem kind of optimistic down there. And I know part of it is the happy mood, but I want to say this to people who are watching who maybe don't support what the truckers in Ottawa are doing because it's disruptive to their lives. I think you can't forget the idea that there are moving goalposts here, and there will be moving goalposts for a very long time. So if you're thinking, we almost got out of lockdown, we almost were going back to normal, and now these guys are, disrupting our city, and we feel, like we're back in lockdown again, sort of thing. Understand that you would have been back in lockdown again anyway, right? This started 2 years ago with 2 weeks to flatten the curve. 2 years later, this is where we are. Big study out of Johns Hopkins said the lockdowns achieved nothing as far as preventing death. So if that's the case, they'll just keep moving the goalposts every time there's a new virus or there's a new variant or whatever. And it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. So for people who don't support the convoy, that's absolutely your right. And you have a right to be heard as well, and you should be heard. But I just want you to understand that this may be, for the people who support the convoy, short-term pain for long-term gain based on what we've seen. Anyway, I'm Trish Wood, and my podcast is Trish Wood is Critical on Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. It's a podcast about critical thinking, and we end each episode by saying, stay critical. See ya.